When a brave, young, if not slightly naive Salvation Army girl by the name of Eloise Bacon ventured into Spitalfields one November evening in 1866, little could she have imagined the tragic chain of events that her spirited actions would set in motion. 18-year-old Eloise was the daughter of a Methodist minister, a devout Christian, and one of the Salvation Army's first recruits, one of the first to don the famous scarlet uniform and venture into London's East End in order to spread the word of the Lord. Her death at the hands of a vampire, a Dolly Biter, and the knowledge that her beloved Bible, ripped from her dying hands, had subsequently been sold to a Whitechapel fence for a few coppers, caused outrage amongst the population of London and beyond, and the newspapers of the day demanded that something be done about these vampires. The London Times, describing Eloise as a sweet, innocent Christian rose, and her vampiric assailant a despicable agent of the night, called for a cut of the vampires of the East End, and when the guilty vampire, the woman who struck down this sweet, innocent Christian rose, was revealed to be none other than the missing daughter of shipping magnate Sir Adler, turned into a despicable agent of the night by a foreign vampire of royal descent, the howls of outrage and the calls for a final solution grew even louder. The net result of the turning of Miss Adler and the murder of Miss Bacon was what was to become known as the Battle of Brick Lane, the establishment's attempt to eradicate the East End vampires once and for all. As a cure to the nighttime ills of Whitechapel and Spitalfields, it was only partially successful. High-born vampires, those born of vampire parents and blessed with lineage, titles, money, and stately homes, had been an integral part of European society for many centuries. The high-borns, or natural-borns, as many mortals refer to them, often held positions of great power, many being involved in politics or having even attained royal standing thanks to centuries of political manoeuvring, clearly arranged marriages, and the occasional war. The East End problem first began to emerge in the mid-18th century, when the City of London started to grow at an exponential rate thanks to the ever-expanding British Empire, and young people were drawn in from the surrounding countryside in large numbers to service the needs of the capital. Young female prostitutes soon caught the eye of male highborns, and the ensuing trysts, thanks to vampire saliva and semen infecting the human female, created the first documented turned vampires. Urban myth tells us that the very first woman to be turned in the East End was a young scullery maid kidnapped by a visiting European highborn in the mid-1700s, who, having escaped from her captor, was hunted down and turned vampire as punishment. As far as we are able to ascertain, only females were capable of being turned. Males, it would appear, always succumbed to their wounds, the only explanation, therefore, for any bloody attacks on mortals by gangs of male vampires that they were born highborns, perhaps letting off a little steam and hunting humans for fun, a distasteful and unsavoury as that sounds, which leads us to the question of the sexual orientation of the female-turned vampires. From all accounts, the main ones which are of course contained within this tome, the turned process had the side effects of making most females lesbian. This was not always the case. There are one or two accounts within this book of female vampires falling in love or having sexual relations with men, but in the main the female vampires were lesbian, and any tales of relationships with human males are told almost exclusively as tales of warning, for it seems such relations rarely ended well for the human male.